Jeff Jenkins with Blueprint again. And so now you're convinced that no matter what, you're not going to let your career be defined by the prospect system that filters the decision whether or not to hire you through the incumbent. So now let's replace that with the Blueprint sales process. We don't believe in scripting. We're going to use some words to try to convey the thoughts to you, but this is where we believe that this is really important, maybe so important your career is going to ultimately be defined in this first meeting, because there's going to be a tug of war between you and the prospect. They've done it their old way for years, maybe 25 or 30 years they bought insurance the same way, given limited information, favoring their incumbent, and you're trying to show them something different. So we're going to have to show them the promise of being willing to do something different. So we come in, you build rapport, however you want to build rapport, and we'll talk about that in other training, and you've probably had a lot of training about rapport building. Following building rapport, we're going to beg you to start with our 3 initial questions. And I want to tell you why. You're in a sales situation and you go to some meeting and there's one person in a meeting, there's 5 people in a meeting, things are going on that maybe are distracting, and we believe you ought to use the same science, okay? We believe selling is about science and art. So the science is follow the discipline of the process, just like an accountant does. But you can still be an artist within that science. You need to be an artist because you're not dealing with robots. But let's follow the science. Here's the first question. After rapport building, after they're showing you around, we just want you to say to them, hey, I know I called you. Were you having a problem? Is that why I'm here? And all of you watching this know that 95% of their time, they're going to say no, there wasn't a problem. There's 2 reasons we ask this question. Number 1, for low-hanging fruit, if there is a problem, let's get it on the table. Normally, they're going to say no. But there's another reason we ask. Have you ever been on a sales call and you show up and people all have their arms crossed and they're like, okay, bud, you called me, you got 5 minutes, go. Well, we're wanting to try to level this situation out a little bit. And so it's almost like saying, oh, you're not having a problem? Well, I'm kind of wondering why I'm here too, because I'm not here to pitch anything. I was kind of thinking you were having a problem. So we're not saying we can totally level this out and get us on there. I understand they see us as a vendor right now, but there's more reasons than just, is there a problem? I want you to be aware of that. Please start with that first question. You'll always know where you're rolling from rapport building. Hey, I know I called you, were you having a problem? They're going to say no. Next, we're going to very casually say, let me ask you this, how often do you guys even shop your insurance? And you know the answers you're going to hear. We shop it every year, we shop it every 3 years, we shop it every 20. And we've got 3 big questions. Think of those 3 big questions as a big, huge river. You may have other small questions that are tributaries running off that river. Be yourself. We're not trying to make a robot out of you. But we're funneling this conversation somewhere with these 3 questions. So our second question was, well, how often do you shop your insurance? And the most common answer is every 3 years or when somebody like you calls. And our money question is, hey, why do you shop it? What's your objective? And you all know they're going to tell you it's something about price. We want to get this conversation focused on price. You may have been to a lot of sales training that says, we don't want to talk about price. Well, let me tell you, for us, that's the dumbest thing we've ever heard. Cost is one of the main drivers of them picking a broker. We're going to get it on the table and we're going to start dealing with it. We're going to start redefining what price and cost are. So I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things that we've learned is brokers that struggle are put in a bid situation. Brokers that flourish can get people talking about their losses and their exposures and how to mitigate risk. And so our sales process is forcing you to the ladder. It's forcing you to get into those deeper issues that drive the bid. So our third question is, hey, when you do go out to market, when you do shop your insurance, why? If they say something vague, like keep our broker honest, we want you to say, hey, I think I understand what you mean by that. Tell me exactly what you mean. They're going to say something about to get the best price. So this whole meeting to this point was pushed to the point for them to tell us price. And then here's what we're going to say. Okay, since you mentioned price, I want to show you how we address that because we think it's a little bit different than the industry does. What I'd like to do is show that to you. Then let's both decide if we move forward or if we're done. Okay, so remember, we've talked about before, their system is you run out and give them a bid. We're trying to take them somewhere different. We're going to have to use different language. We're going to have to give them different things to think about. So I'm saying, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, would you mind, is it okay, can I show you the process and let us both decide if we move forward or if we're done? okay? We hope that that lowers the sales resistance by saying, after I show you this, you can opt out. Hey, I can opt out. Either side can opt out. Let's just take a look at it. Okay. If they agree, and most will, we'll say this. Hey, the first thing you have to understand is we don't price this stuff, neither does your broker, okay? Here's where cost comes from in insurance. It's a combination of these three factors: your past losses, your current exposure, which will predict your future losses, and how we market the story of these two variables to an underwriter. An underwriter is the person that prices your risk. So for those of you watching, I'm going to come back and go into this conversation in more detail later. I want to go ahead and move through this, but just know we're going to say to them, look, this is where price comes from. It's a combination of the three factors: your past losses, your current exposure as seen by the underwriter, which will predict your future losses, and then how we market that story to the underwriting community, how we're able to tell your story, much like in a film or in a book, to get you the best deal. So for us or for anybody else to get you a better deal than you have now, we're going to have to become intimately aware of these three variables. Because if you're not performing well in any of these three, then you're overpaying. So let me tell you, Mr. or Mrs. Prospect, our next step, if you want to take it, we call discovery. We come in and learn more about you, and we're going to give you a document that we call a blueprint. And that blueprint's designed to show you if you're breaking down in one of the three variables I just described, which these are the variables that drive your cost. And I remember you told me the reason you go to market every 3 years, or you get competing bids every 3 years, is so you can make sure you're paying the lowest premium. This may be eye-opening for you when you get through the process. And so at this point, we need to talk about, would you like to step into the process and take the next step? So for our sales process, there's no plan B. If somebody wants to shove a stack of papers at us, pat us on the back and tell us to go away and bring back a bid, we're not into that. We want them to step into our discovery. The reason we brought up price is because we know they're going to tell us it's about price. So we say, look, there's no way to get the best price if you don't want to talk about these three variables. Can you imagine telling a lender at a bank that you want the best rate and terms you could get on a car loan or a mortgage loan, but you're not willing to disclose your credit or your income? So those are the same two variables. Think about it. If you've got a repossession on your credit and you don't make any money, pretty hard to get pretty good terms on a loan. Well, insurance is no different. But instead of being credit and income, our two key variables are your past losses and your current exposures and the story that tells about you to the underwriting community. And what we've learned is you can get a far different result, what we call best in SIC code pricing, when you get these variables right. So if you'd like, that's our next step, and we can tell you more about what that looks like if you'd like to step into our process.